Hey friend, thanks for joining this story today. There are moments in history when small dreams grow into great realities, when a single man's vision gives birth to an empire, when hope rises from the dust of hardship and courage shapes the fate of nations. More than 700 years ago, in the hills of Anatolia, a small tribe lit a fire that would spread across 3 continents. That fire became one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen, the Ottoman Empire. It was an empire of warriors and poets, of sultans and scholars, of mosques that touched the sky, and markets filled with treasures from every corner of the earth. For 6 centuries, it was a power that made the world watch in awe. Today we will take you on a journey through battles and palaces, through dreams and struggles, through glory and decline. This is not just history, it is the story of people who laughed, cried, fought, prayed and lived under the crescent banner. This is the story of the Ottoman Empire. The world has seen many empires rise and fall, but among them the Ottoman Empire stands tall as one of the longest, strongest and most fascinating. It lasted for more than 600 years, spreading across 3 continents, ruling millions of people, and leaving a legacy that still lives today. This is the story of the Ottomans, how they rose from a small tribe in Anatolia, how they became rulers of a vast empire, how they created beauty and power, how they declined, and finally how they fell. It all began at the end of the 13th century. In a land called Anatolia, where today's Turkey is, many small Turkish tribes lived after the fall of the great Seljuk Empire. Among these tribes was one led by a man named Osman. Osman was not a king or a great ruler when he began. He was the son of Ertuğrul, a tribal leader. But Osman had vision. He wanted to unite the Turks and create a strong state. He believed he was chosen for something great. A famous story tells that Osman once had a dream. In his dream, a great tree grew from his chest. Its branches spread across the world. This was seen as a sign that his descendants would build a vast empire. Osman began with small raids against the weakening Byzantine Empire. Slowly, his tribe grew stronger. People admired his leadership and courage. His followers began to call themselves the Ottomans, after Osman. When Osman died in 1324, his son Orhan took over. Orhan expanded the small state into new territories. He captured Bursa, which became the first capital of the Ottomans. Bursa grew into a city of mosques, markets and schools. It was the first sign that the Ottomans were becoming more than just warriors. They were building a civilization. After Orhan came his son Murad I, who expanded further into the Balkans. He created a system that would become the backbone of the Ottoman army, the Janissaries. The Janissaries were special soldiers, trained from childhood to be loyal only to the Sultan. Many of them were boys taken from Christian families through the Devshirme system, converted to Islam and trained in military and administration. Though the system was harsh, it created one of the strongest armies in the world. Murad I was killed in battle in Kosovo in 1389, but by then the Ottomans had become a serious power in Europe. His son Bayezid I, known as the Thunderbolt, expanded even more. He defeated Christian armies and laid siege to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. But before he could take the city, a new enemy arrived from the East Timur, the Layim Tamerlane. In 1402, Timur crushed Bayezid's army and captured him. Bayezid died in captivity, and the empire almost collapsed. But the Ottomans recovered. Within a few decades, they were back on their feet, stronger than before. The dream of conquering Constantinople was in every Ottoman ruler's heart. This city was rich, strategic, and symbolic. For centuries it had been the capital of the Byzantine Empire. It was finally in 1453 that Mehmed II, later called Mehmed the Conqueror, achieved the impossible. At just 21 years old, he led a massive army and huge cannons against the great walls of Constantinople. For weeks the city resisted, but on May 29, 1453, the Ottomans broke through. Constantinople fell. The world was shocked. The Byzantine Empire, which had lasted for more than 1,000 years, was gone. The Ottomans now controlled one of the greatest cities in history. Mehmed renamed the city Istanbul and made it the new capital. He encouraged Muslims, Christians, and Jews to live there, making it a city of many cultures. He built the grand Topkapi Palace, where sultans would rule for centuries, and turned the Hagia Sophia, a great church, into a mosque. The conquest of Constantinople marked the true rise of the Ottoman Empire as a superpower. Over the next decades, the Ottomans expanded into the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. But it was under Suleiman the Magnificent, 1520–1566, that the empire reached its greatest glory. Suleiman was both a warrior and a lawmaker. His armies captured Hungary and reached the gates of Vienna. His navy, led by great admirals like Barbarossa, dominated the Mediterranean Sea. The empire stretched from Algeria to Iraq, from Hungary to Yemen. But Suleiman was not only about war, he was a poet and a lover of art. He created fair laws and became known as the lawgiver. He worked with the brilliant architect Mimar Sinan, who built beautiful mosques and bridges, including the great Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire became the center of the Islamic world, the strongest power in Europe, and a hub of culture and trade. Life in the empire was diverse. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived under Ottoman rule. Non-Muslims paid a special tax, but were allowed to practice their religion and manage their communities. This system, called the millet system, gave the empire stability. Markets were full of goods from across the world: spices, silk, coffee, carpets, gold, and books. Istanbul became known as the marketplace of the world. Education was important too. The Ottomans built schools, libraries, and hospitals. Science, astronomy, medicine, and calligraphy thrived. Poetry and music filled the palaces and homes. Women in the empire played important roles, especially in the palace. Powerful women like Harem Sultan, the wife of Suleiman, influenced politics and culture. But no empire lasts forever. After Suleiman, weaker sultans came to power. Many were more interested in palace luxuries than ruling. The Janissaries, once loyal and strong, became corrupt and resisted change. The empire began to lose battles. In 1571, at the Battle of Lepanto, European powers defeated the Ottoman navy. In 1683, the Ottomans failed in their second siege of Vienna, marking the start of their retreat from Europe. Corruption, heavy taxes, and poor leadership weakened the empire, yet it survived for centuries more, slowly declining but still standing. By the 1800s, Europe was rising fast with new technology, industry, and powerful armies. The Ottomans struggled to keep up. They tried reforms called the Tanzimat reforms to modernize schools, the army, and the government. Railways were built, newspapers spread, and new laws were introduced. But the empire kept losing lands. Greece, Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria gained independence. Egypt slipped away under Muhammad Ali. European powers interfered more and more, calling the Ottomans the sick man of Europe. The final blow came with World War I, 1914–1918. The Ottomans joined the war on the side of Germany. Though they had victories, like the defense of Gallipoli, led by Mustafa Kemal, later Ataturk, Overall, the war was disastrous. In 1918, the Ottomans were defeated, Istanbul was occupied, their lands were divided among the Allies. In 1922, the last Sultan, Mehmed VI, was sent into exile. The Ottoman Empire was no more. In its place, the Republic of Turkey was born, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. The Ottoman Empire lasted more than 600 years. It ruled over 3 continents and countless peoples. It left behind mosques, palaces, bridges, music, poetry, and traditions. The Ottomans showed the world the power of vision, unity, and courage, but they also showed how corruption, resistance to change, and weak leadership can bring even the greatest empires down. Even today, in Turkey, the Balkans, the Middle East and North Africa, you can see and feel the Ottoman influence in food, architecture, language, and culture. The story of the Ottoman Empire is not only about sultans and soldiers, palaces and battles. It is the story of how faith, courage, and vision can turn a small beginning into a world-shaping force. For more than 600 years, the Ottomans stood as a bridge between East and West, between Asia and Europe, between tradition and change. They built cities that still shine today, mosques that still call hearts to prayer, and ideas that still inspire minds across the world. But like every empire, their time also passed. The crescent banner that once flew over 3 continents slowly faded, yet the memory of their achievements, their struggles, and their dreams lives on. History teaches us that no empire lasts forever, but the values, the lessons, and the spirit can live through the ages. The Ottomans remind us of the power of vision, the cost of unity, and the importance of justice and strength. The story of the Ottoman Empire is not just about wars and kings. It is about people, ideas, culture, and the small things that changed the world forever. Imagine a world where the East meets the West, where coffee first smells in the streets of Istanbul, where a tulip flower becomes more precious than gold, and where one empire rules for more than 6 centuries. This was the Ottoman Empire. It began in 1299, when a small Turkish tribe under Osman I decided to build something greater than themselves. They were warriors, believers, and dreamers. Slowly, their small state grew, conquering lands, cities, and hearts. What started as a small seed turned into one of the strongest trees of history, lasting for more than 600 years. The Ottomans were called the shadow of God on earth. Their sultan was not only a king, but after 1517, he was also known as the Caliph of Islam, the leader of millions of Muslims across the world. To ordinary people, he was not just a ruler, he was a guardian of faith. But the Ottoman story is not only about power, it is also about beauty, culture, and life itself. Take coffee, for example. Today, people drink coffee everywhere in New York, Paris, London, or Kabul. But do you know who helped spread this drink to the world? The Ottomans. In the 1500s, coffee houses opened in Istanbul. People came to talk, tell stories, play chess, and discuss poetry. For the first time, coffee became part of daily life, and soon it traveled to Europe, changing culture forever. The Ottomans also loved tulips. In the 1700s, they even had a time in history called the Tulip Era. Tulips became a symbol of beauty and wealth. Rich men planted them in their gardens, poets wrote about them, and painters painted them. Later, tulips spread to Europe, especially Holland, where people went crazy for them. But it all began in the heart of the Ottoman Empire. Their capital, Istanbul, was a city like no other, built on 2 continents, Europe and Asia. It stood as a bridge between worlds. Merchants from China, India, Africa, and Europe all passed through its streets. Spices, silk, gold, and ideas were exchanged in its markets. Mosques rose into the sky with beautiful domes and minarets. Among them stood the Blue Mosque, a wonder of Islamic art that still amazes the world today. The empire was vast and full of diversity. Inside its borders lived Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Instead of forcing everyone to become the same, the Ottomans allowed each group to live under their own rules in what was called the millet system. A Christian could go to his own court, a Jew to his own rabbi, and a Muslim to his qadi, judge. It was a system of tolerance, unusual for its time. Inside the palace, the Sultan's harem was not only about beauty and love, it was also about power. Women like Hurrem Sultan, Roxana, influenced politics, diplomacy, and even wars. They built mosques, hospitals, and schools. Behind the curtain, they shaped the future of the empire. The empire's army was one of the strongest in the world. The Janissaries, elite soldiers trained from childhood, were feared by kings across Europe. They were loyal only to the Sultan, and their discipline made them almost unbeatable in battle. Many of these soldiers came from the Devshirme system, where Christian boys were taken, converted, and trained as warriors or administrators. Some of them even rose to become Grand Viziers, second only to the Sultan himself. But the Ottomans were not just warriors. They were builders of knowledge. They translated Greek, Persian, and Arabic books, preserving wisdom and passing it on to Europe. Without the Ottomans, much of the knowledge that fueled the European Renaissance might have been lost. The empire was full of sounds, colors, and tastes. From sweet desserts like baklava, to the call to prayer echoing from mosques, to carpets woven with care, Ottoman life was rich and diverse. They ruled over more than 30 ethnic groups, and more than 25 languages were spoken across their lands. In the 1800s, as the empire began to weaken, it tried to modernize. In 1876, it introduced the first modern constitution in the Muslim world. But the world was changing too fast. New powers like Britain and France rose, and the Ottomans struggled to keep up. Finally, in 1922, after more than 600 years, the empire came to an end. A new country, Turkey, was born from its heart. Yet the legacy of the Ottomans lives on. The food people eat, the mosques they pray in, the music they listen to, the tulips in the gardens, and even the coffee in their cups, all carry a piece of the Ottoman Empire. It was not just an empire of swords, but an empire of culture, art, faith, and beauty. So as we close this chapter, remember, empires rise and fall, but the human spirit, when fueled by faith, courage, and discipline, can create wonders that echo for centuries. This was the story of the Ottoman Empire, a story of greatness, a story of struggle, a story that will never be forgotten.